All right, so are you ready to like really dive deep into the Bhagavad Gita with me today?
I am so ready. Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita, but more specifically, Swami Prabhupada's commentary on it.
Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Yatharoop?
Yes, exactly. That's the one from 1967.
Yes.
And, he was really trying to make this ancient wisdom accessible and relevant and like really hit home for a modern audience. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating is that he succeeded.
Yeah.
He really did bridge that gap, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like another thing that's so interesting to me about the Bhagavad Gita is that it's set on a battlefield.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's
Yeah.
a dialogue between Prince Arjuna and Krishna, who is like, we find out, a divine incarnation.
Right in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
It's a pretty intense setting.
It is. And so I'm thinking like there's got to be something about that battlefield setting that's not just random.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally symbolic.
Right.
It's a metaphor for the battles we all face in our own lives. You know, the internal struggles, the tough decisions, the moments when we feel like totally pulled in a million different directions.
Okay, so it's not just like some abstract philosophy up in the clouds. It's actually a guidebook for how to like live life.
Exactly. It's for navigating the messiness of being human.
I love that.
Mm.
And one of the first things that Prabhupada really dives into in this commentary is the nature of the self.
Yeah.
This idea that there's a difference between our soul, like our Atman, and our physical body.
Yeah. Have you ever been like so busy with the everyday grind that you kind of forget that there's this whole other dimension to who you are?
Oh my gosh. All the time. Like I get so caught up in just doing that I lose sight of like the being part,
That's exactly what Prabhupada wants us to see.
Okay.
He wants us to remember that we're not just these physical bodies.
Right.
He uses this analogy of a driver in a car to explain this.
Okay. I like that.
So the car, that's our body, right?
Yeah.
It's temporary, needs maintenance, eventually it breaks down.
Yeah.
But the driver,
Soul.
the soul, exactly, that's eternal.
Wow, that really puts things into perspective. Like we spend so much time, focused on our physical selves. Like, oh, I got to work out. I got to eat right. But Prabhupada is saying that understanding our true nature, our soul, that's the key to spiritual growth.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that we're spiritual beings having this human experience.
I love that. So how do we start to connect with that spiritual side?
Well, Prabhupada introduces this really interesting concept called the three gunas,
Okay.
sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Break that down for me. What are the gunas?
Okay, so think of them as like the three fundamental forces of nature.
Okay.
And they influence every single aspect of our existence.
Yeah.
Like literally everything.
Everything. Okay, so
Yeah.
give me some examples.
All right, so sattva, that's pure goodness.
Hmm.
It's associated with peace, wisdom,
Oh.
that feeling of being totally in the flow.
Okay, I can dig it. What about rajas?
Rajas is all about passion and action. It's the energy that drives us to achieve, to create, to get things done. But it can also lead to restlessness and anxiety if it's out of balance.
Like that double-edged sword.
Exactly. And then there's tamas.
Okay, this one sounds a little bit more intense.
Yeah, tamas is kind of like the opposite of sattva.
Yeah.
It's ignorance and inertia. It can manifest as laziness, delusion, even depression.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
basically we all have this mix of these gunas swirling around inside of us,
Yeah.
influencing our thoughts, our actions, our whole outlook on life.
Exactly.
That's kind of trippy.
Yeah. But here's what's really interesting. We're not stuck with a fixed ratio of these gunas.
Okay, so there's hope.
We could cultivate more sattva through our choices and actions.
So, like, let's say I struggle with procrastination, like really struggle with it. Could that be a sign of, like, excess tamas? If so, how can I shift towards more sattva and actually get things done?
That's a great question. And yeah, procrastination can definitely come from tamas, that feeling of inertia. And
Oh,
yeah, that's me for sure.
yeah.
But recognizing it is the first step. And to shift towards sattva, you might try incorporating more structure into your day, setting clear goals, and surrounding yourself with positive, inspiring influences. Even something as simple as starting your day with a meditation practice can help cultivate that sattvic energy.
I love that. Okay, so, this is making me think about the concept of karma. The idea that every action has a reaction. It's not just some cosmic punishment system, right?
Right. It's not about some guy up there with a giant scorecard. It's more about cause and effect.
Okay.
The principle that our actions, whether they're physical, mental, or emotional, create ripples that shape our future experiences.
Mm.
And those experiences, in turn, offers opportunities for growth and learning.
And Prabhupada tells the story in his commentary about King Karta, who got so attached to a deer that he literally thought about it on his deathbed. And because of that attachment, he was reborn as a deer in his next life. That's
So
wild.
yeah, it's a pretty powerful illustration of how our desires and attachments can influence our journey. Karma is not about punishment. It's about understanding the consequences of our choices and how those choices create the reality we experience.
Okay. So if we're constantly creating karma, is there a way to break free from this whole cycle of action and reaction?
That's where bhakti yoga comes in, the path of devotion.
Mm.
It's about cultivating love and surrender to a higher power, recognizing that we're not alone in this journey.
Right. And we see this play out in Arjuna's story, right? He's totally overwhelmed by the prospect of having to fight his own family. And it's Krishna's guidance that helps him find his way.
Exactly. Arjuna surrenders to Krishna's wisdom, showing us the power of seeking guidance beyond our own limited understanding. Through devotion and surrender, we can transcend our ego and connect with a higher consciousness.
So we've talked about the self, the gunas karma, and now devotion. It feels like we're building up to something even bigger here. What's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal, according to the Bhagavad Gita, is moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death.
Whoa. Okay, so it's not about escaping life. It's about achieving a state of freedom and enlightenment within the world.
Exactly. And Prabhupada emphasizes that this is an achievable goal for anyone who's willing to dedicate themselves to the spiritual path.
Wow, I am so ready to keep going with this.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. We are back and ready to dive even deeper into the Bhagavad Gita with Swami Prabhupada's commentary.
Yes, we've laid some serious groundwork already.
We have. We've talked about the self, the gunas karma, bhakti yoga, but I feel like there's still so much more to explore.
Well, there is. And to really understand how all these teachings apply to our lives, we need to understand how Prabhupada describes this world we live in.
He calls it the material world, right? But what does that actually mean? Like, is he saying that everything around us is just like stuff?
It's more about understanding that the material world is a realm of duality.
Duality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all about opposites. Happiness and distress, pleasure and pain, birth and death.
So it's like we're constantly going up and down on this cosmic seesaw. No wonder life can feel so chaotic sometimes.
Exactly. The Bhagavad Gita tells us that the material world is full of change, impermanence, and even illusion.
Wait, so you're saying that we're basically living in like this giant, ever-shifting mirage? That's kind of mind-blowing and a little unsettling.
It can be. But it's important to understand this because Prabhupada argues that if we become too attached to the fleeting pleasures of the material world, we lose sight of our true spiritual nature.
It's like we're chasing after shadows instead of turning towards the light.
Right. Exactly.
But how do we break free from this cycle of chasing things that ultimately don't bring us lasting happiness?
Prabhupada talks about cultivating detachment.
Detachment. Okay, hear me out. Because that word always makes me think of someone who's like cold and totally shut off from the world. But shouldn't we be engaged with life and all its ups and downs?
That's a really common misunderstanding about detachment.
Okay, good.
Detachment isn't about becoming like an emotionless robot or withdrawing from life.
Okay.
It's more about shifting our focus from external possessions and achievements to inner peace and spiritual fulfillment.
So instead of clinging to things, we should focus on cultivating the right qualities within ourselves.
Precisely. True happiness and fulfillment come from within, not from external sources. It's about cultivating qualities like kindness, compassion, humility, a sense of purpose.
Okay, I can see how that makes sense.
Yeah,
But the Bhagavad Gita also talks a lot about action and fulfilling our duty. That's where Dharma comes in, right?
absolutely. Dharma, or righteous action, is central to the Bhagavad Gita. But it's not about blindly following rules or societal expectations. It's so much deeper than that.
So it's not just about doing what we're told. There's got to be more to it.
Right. It's about understanding our unique role in the world, our unique gifts and talents, and then acting in a way that aligns with our true purpose and contributes to the greater good.
Think about Arjuna's dilemma on the battlefield. He was a warrior, but he was so torn about fighting his own family. It wasn't a simple decision with a clear right or wrong answer.
Exactly. And through his dialogue with Krishna, Arjuna comes to understand that his dharma as a warrior is not about killing, but about upholding righteousness and fighting for what is just.
So fulfilling our dharma is about acting with integrity and aligning our actions with our values, even when it's hard.
Precisely. And Prabhupada emphasizes that acting in accordance with our dharma is a crucial step on the path to spiritual growth.
It's like our actions become this form of offering a way to serve something larger than ourselves.
And through selfless action, we purify our minds and move closer to that ultimate goal of liberation.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. It's amazing how everything is so interconnected in the Bhagavad Gita,
Right.
like this tapestry of wisdom, and each thread is connected to the next. And the overall picture it paints is a guide to living a life of purpose and meaning.
I love that.
But I have to admit, it's a bit overwhelming. Like, how do we actually integrate all these teachings into our everyday lives? We're not warriors on a battlefield facing these huge dilemmas.
That's true. But we all face challenges big and small. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us tools to face those challenges with wisdom and grace.
Okay, but can you give us some concrete examples? Like, how would I use this stuff when I'm like totally stressed out of my mind?
When you're feeling overwhelmed by stress, think back to the concept of detachment. Instead of getting lost in the external stressors, shift your focus to cultivating inner peace. Maybe try a quick meditation or spend a few moments in nature. It's about finding that inner stillness amidst the chaos.
Oh, that's a good reminder. It's about changing our relationship to the stress instead of trying to make it completely disappear.
Right.
Okay, what about when we have to make a really tough decision?
When faced with a difficult choice, reflect on your dharma. Ask yourself what action aligns with my values and contributes to the greater good. What feels like the most righteous path, even if it's the more difficult one.
It's like using the Bhagavad Gita as this compass to navigate life's twists and turns.
Yeah, I like that.
And what about when we're feeling lost or disconnected?
When you feel lost, cultivate devotion. Connect with something larger than yourself through prayer chanting or even just spending time in nature. Remind yourself that you're not alone on this journey.
It's about remembering that we're connected to this higher power, this source of love and support that's always there for us. That's actually really comforting.
And that awareness can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
It allows us to tap into a strength that goes beyond our limited selves.
It's amazing how the Bhagavad Gita goes from these like ancient philosophical concepts to actually feeling like a really practical guide for navigating the ups and downs of life.
And that's what makes Prabhupada's commentary so powerful. He helps us see the Bhagavad Gita not as some dusty old text, but as this living, breathing source of wisdom that we can apply to our lives right now.
It's like he built this bridge between ancient wisdom and the very modern challenges we face every single day.
And it's a bridge we can all cross.
Okay, welcome back to our deep dive into the Bhagavad Gita through the eyes of Swami Prabhupada.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. I mean, we've talked about everything from like understanding the true nature of ourselves to navigating this crazy material world and figuring out what our dharma even is.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. And it all seems to be pointing towards this ultimate goal of spiritual life, which is self-realization.
Exactly.
Okay, wait, but full disclosure, the phrase self-realization always kind of sounds a bit like out there to me, you know? What does it actually mean? Like, how would you describe that experience?
It's about moving beyond our limited ego identifications,
Yeah.
beyond all the labels and roles that we take on in this material world. It's about recognizing that deep down, we're all spiritual beings connected to something much greater than ourselves.
So instead of getting caught up in all that I'm a this or I do that kind of thinking, it's about tapping into a deeper sense of who we are at our core.
Exactly. And Prabhupada calls this connection to the divine Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness. So it's about becoming aware of our inherent connection to the divine, to that source of all existence.
That's it. And here's the thing. This connection isn't something we have to create. It's already there within each of us. Prabhupada describes it as like a diamond buried under layers of dust. Spiritual practice is about gently clearing away those layers so that our true brilliance can shine through.
I love that analogy. So it's not about becoming divine, but about remembering who we truly are.
Beautifully put. And the Bhagavad Gita offers a path, or rather a whole set of paths, to help us on this journey of self-discovery. Prabhupada talks extensively about the practice of yoga.
Okay, but when I hear the word yoga, I immediately think about like stretching and fancy poses in a studio. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, those physical practices are definitely a part of it, but yoga as described in the Bhagavad Gita is so much broader than that. It's about using various techniques to quiet the mind and connect with the divine.
So it's a more holistic approach that involves our body and our spirit.
Exactly. Yoga includes practices like meditation, chanting, selfless service, and even just cultivating ethical behavior in our daily lives. It's about aligning ourselves with the divine in every aspect of our being.
So it sounds like a lifelong journey, this constant process of refining and purifying ourselves.
It is. And Prabhupada encourages us to approach this journey with patience, perseverance, and above all, love.
Love. I'm curious about how love fits into all of this.
Love is the essence of spiritual life. It's the driving force that connects us not only to the divine, but also to each other.
This is making me think back to bhakti yoga, that path of devotion that we discussed. It seems like love is at the heart of that path, too.
It absolutely is. And Prabhupada emphasizes that love for Krishna isn't just a sentimental feeling. It's this transformative force that purifies our hearts and elevates our consciousness.
So by cultivating love and devotion, we're essentially aligning ourselves with like the highest good, with the very source of love itself.
Yes. And by doing so, we naturally become more compassionate, more forgiving, and more peaceful individuals.
It radiates outward from that inner transformation. Honestly, this whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's really shifted my perspective on what spirituality is all about. It's not just about rituals or beliefs, it's about living a life that's truly infused with love and purpose.
And that's precisely what Prabhupada's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita offers. A practical guide for navigating the challenges of this material world while always remembering our true spiritual nature and that ultimate goal of self-realization.
It's incredible how these ancient teachings still resonate so deeply today. They really speak to our deepest longing for meaning, for connection, for liberation.
And that longing, that spark of divinity within each of us, is what ultimately leads us home.
This has been such an inspiring and insightful journey into the Bhagavad Gita through the lens of Swami Prabhupada. Thank you so much for being such a fantastic guide.
The pleasure was all mine. I
Yeah.
really hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights that you can take with you on your own path of self-discovery.
And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked something within you and that you'll continue to explore the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep diving deep into that vast ocean of knowledge within you.